element of the SONA since the birth of democracy is Imbong, the praise singer. Although our parliament is based on the Westminster traditions, Imbong's praise singing gives Africanness pride of place. Imbongi starts this narration as the presidential procession enters the chamber. The sergeant at arms and the usher of the Black Rod are responsible for compliance with security policy in and around the chamber and galleries. The sergeant at arms and the usher of the Black Rod place the mace and the Black Rod in place before the speaker and the chairperson of the NCOP respectively. The mace is a symbol of authority of the Speaker of the National Assembly. When the sergeant at arms carries the mace into the debating chamber and places it before the Speaker of the National Assembly, it means that the National Assembly is formally in session and that its proceedings are official. The mace was designed to reflect the history, traditions, and diverse cultures and languages of South Africa. The Black Rod is the symbol of the authority of the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, NCOP. The Black Rod reflects the important role of the provinces in the functioning of the NCOP. When the usher of the Black Rod carries the Black Rod into the debating chamber and places it before the chairperson of the NCOP, it means that the NCOP is formally in session and that its proceedings are official. The presiding officers, while standing, bows to the left and then to the right in greeting and request a moment of silence for prayer or meditation. Once everyone is seated, the presiding officer reads out the notice calling the joint sitting and calls on the president to deliver his address to the joint sitting. No other business may be considered on this day. The president then delivers the SONA and no other debate takes place. On conclusion of the president's speech, the presiding officer adjourns the sitting. Members are required to wait while the procession leaves the chamber. Over the years, this address has set the tone for the goals of the year. It speaks to businesses, civil society, and general public. It gives insight into what we as a nation have achieved and a plan to achieve going forward. Through this address, the first citizen and leader of the nation shines the light on the path we shall be taking and leads us to where we want to be as a nation. More than just the speech, the SONA tells South Africans as well as the world why South Africa continues to be the land of possibilities.
Conservation in the Northern Cape. Between 2013 and 2019, she served as Premier of the Northern Cape Province. Ms. Lucas joined Parliament in 2019 as a permanent delegate to the National Council of Provinces, where she was appointed as the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces.
Welcome back. One of the responsibilities of the Office of the Deputy Chairperson and the Office of the Deputy Speaker is oversight campaigns dealing with sectoral issues. To talk more about these, I am with the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Ms. Sylvia Lucas. Good morning, Deputy Chairperson, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Silas, and thank you very much indeed for having me today.
Yes. You have led a process to review the 1994 Women's Charter. May you please elaborate on that?
Before I start, let me greet the listeners and the viewers to this very important broadcast of Parliament TV today. Yes, indeed, if you have said, we have led the Women's Charter review sessions since 2019. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we mostly did it virtually. And what we also did, the method that we use is to make sure that we actually did it on a district level. So what we actually did as the part of Parliament responsible for sectoral parliaments, we went through all the districts, some of them physically, some of them mostly virtually. And we actually brought the 1994 Women's Charter. Coincidentally, we just said in this very same week, we had the memorial service of Dr. Frini Jinwala, and Dr. Jinwala was the chairperson of the Women's National Coalition, who in 1994 actually drew up the Women's Charter, which they called the Women's Charter for Effective Equality. So in 2019, when we started the process in Parliament, we realized it was 25 years of having the demand document of the women. That was actually, most of the issues or areas were included in the Bill of Rights in the Constitution of 1996. But when we actually realized it's 25 years, what is the status of women? What is in actual fact, how is Parliament or the government responding to the needs and the demands of women? So we started a process of which, first of all, we actually assessed and reviewed the whole gender machinery, nationally, provincially, as well as at a local level. So what we did is to review the gender machinery to see whether there is a national gender framework in place, legislatively, policies, and overall the structures and the systems. Is it in place? Within that assessment, we actually found a lot of weaknesses. But before we went back to government, we started with our process of reviewing on a grassroots level how women are perceiving the demands that was there, put in the CODESA process, to see whether there is response to the issues of women, whether our legislation have actually lived up to the standards that is required. If you can, you know for a fact that South Africa is not a really women-friendly, as well as other groupings, friendly country, in terms of the fact we are such a violent country, and there is such a lot of patriarchy still prevailing, and also the issue of just generally, there is no gender equality. Maybe because of the patriarchal history of our country, that we are having that kind of issues. So when we actually assessed, there were so many findings in our process that we found that is still lacking. Just for a start, if you go to local government, they are supposed to have an integrated development plan. Is this integrated development plan engendered? Is the budgets of the local councils or the district councils responding to issues of particularly women and children, people with disabilities, and also nowadays we are including the LGBTQI groupings. Is it really responding to the real issues that we want to see in a gender equal society? Are we speaking about gender mainstreaming just as a term that all of us know, or are we speaking about gender mainstreaming in making sure that there is disaggregated data that indicates that how are we planning, how are our planning engendered, how our budgeting engendered, what are we generally doing to make South Africa a more equal society? Because if we speak about inequality, we usually speak about the divide between poverty, the poor and the rich. But we are not speaking about the general divide within society, where you find that men and women are just not treated equally. And that is the things that we found. If I can mention, for instance, an issue like the Customary Marriages Act, it is definitely more beneficial to men, because in many instances, you know, there is this thing of polygamy in South Africa. In many instances, a woman married under the customary marriage regime might find that the husband have taken a second wife without even consulting her. So our legislation at that stage didn't really respond to the issues of women, to a gender equal society. And I'm not only that, but also the issue of gender pay, equal pay for equal work. It's a big issue in South, not even in South Africa alone, because the United Nations is also dealing with that very same issue. But it is some of the findings that, and in general, the biggest issue that came up in all our consultation was the issue of gender-based violence and femicide. So in actual fact, our women are living in a society that is just not friendly to their peaceful coexistence with those that they are living with. Because we also found that the most of the gender-based violence is intimate partner violence. Most of the people that are killed are women that are killed. What we termed as femicide is killed by an intimate partner. But that was all of the findings of our Women's Charter review sessions. But what we also did, after having all that findings, is in each and every province, we called a high-level session with the cabinets of the different, the executives of the different provinces. And we reported to them as to what is the issues that the people have raised. And we also requested them that within a certain time frame, we want them to begin to respond to the issues that we have raised, to the issues that we have found. We also went on and had a law reform session where we called the different ministers that is responsible for legislation, but also those that are supposed to, like the judiciary, like home affairs, like police, whoever, we called them together, social development particularly. And we responded, and we actually started to analyze the existing legislation, like the gender-based. At that stage, we only had the Domestic Violence Act. The act is not necessarily responding to gender-based violence per se. So, and also the issue of Muslim marriages, the issue of customary marriages, and also many things. And also, one of the things that we found, that within the South African marriage regime, there was more or less almost more than 14 different kinds of legislation that ruled marriages and civil unions, whatever you name that. And actually, we brought that to the attention of the Law Reform Commission, because we worked with them. And we started to say that we need to make some recommendations as to how do our legislation, our policies, our the framework, the legislative framework, how does it respond to a gender equal society? How does it respond to the needs of women, to the needs of vulnerable groups, as we call them in South Africa? So that was more or less the kind of campaign that we have actually did, very inclusive. I think I've touched already now on some of the stakeholders, but the most important stakeholders that we had was the women on the ground. And we had a very big group of different women from different communities, from different backgrounds, that we actually consulted. And we also made provision for those like women in the legal fraternity, women in the academia. There is actually people that you won't necessarily find in a public meeting where they will be part and parcel of a consultation process. But we succeeded in making sure that making it as inclusive as possible, so that we can actually see to it that this is a product of the women of South Africa, or the people of South Africa, because we must say we had many men that was involved in the process. We met with in some of the traditional areas. We invited the traditional leaders, like for instance, when we at Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, issues of ukuthwala and all of that. It was issues that came up in our consultative process. And now, what we then did afterwards, after we have consulted, we then started with the process again. Physically went to all 9 provinces. In the Eastern Cape, we even had 2 events because of the vastness of that specific province. So we went back and we actually now brought the women in contact with the executives of the provinces for the executive to start to respond to the issues that was raised. So they reported, and I should say I'm a little bit encouraged by the fact that in all the provinces you found that they have started to make a change to the gender machinery, to how they approach women issues, and also the Finance and Fiscal Commission went into a assessment of 3 important departments, that is education, health, and social development. But the unfortunate part, still not only in South Africa, because I'm recently from Kenya, is that we still don't have real disaggregated data to show an engendered perspective. And that is what the Finance and Fiscal Commission found in analyzing, in terms of our services, in terms of the budget, where it's going. Is it responding to equality? Equality in the sense of gender, if we speak about it. So we actually, the process that we followed was quite extensive. And our findings, we actually reported it on all platforms. I even raised some of the issues, like the issues of the monetary bills and the budgets. And so I raised it in the SONA last year, the issue of our planning, how it is not necessarily gender specific or gender sensitive. That is issues that I've raised. So we are actually, the process that we have followed is actually more and more beginning to raise consciousness around the fact that more will still need to be done to make sure that we are more gender inclusive society within South Africa.
So you have already given us the what you call the stakeholders and so on and so. But now the impact, did it bring about many changes to the behavior of people, especially with regard to issues of Okutwala and all those things Do we have less cases of such incidents being reported to the police, or what?
Before I get to that specific issues that you are raising, I must emphasize that a very important stakeholder was Stats SA, as well as the Commission on Gender Equality, and like I already mentioned, the Finance and Fiscal Commission. But also I need to emphasize that the SAHRC was also a very important stakeholder, as well as the academia from different universities. Stellenbosch, you can mention University of Northwest, but from different universities, and others, retired academia, and also like I mentioned, the Law Reform Commission and all of that. I just want to give an overview of how extensive our involvement of stakeholders was. One of our very important partners was the Progressive Women's Movement that assisted us a lot with the mobilization of women. Local government, at the local government level and provincial governments, we got the best of responses of that. One thing that I can say, first of all, our process assisted in making sure that legislative review started to unfold in terms of issues of the different legislation that is ruling violence, and particularly domestic violence, of which we wanted to specifically speak about issues of gender-based violence, and also the issue of the marriage regime. If you can speak to Dr. Mutsaledi, you will hear from him how they are really busy reviewing the whole marriage regime because of the reports that we gave back through the law reform, through our processes. So what I'm saying is that although we still have to have education campaigns at the level of the grassroots more, but at least those that are in decision-making positions begin to understand better what is it that we want to achieve and what is it that they need to do for us to give them a positive review in terms of our oversight. That is why I'm saying we still will have to educate our people a lot. But at least we have the ear of our traditional leaders. We have the ear, because if you have followed the Men's Parliament, because SANAC is also one of our major partners, but if you have followed the Men's Parliament last year, you would have heard that they have started to have traditional men's parliaments at the level of traditional councils, at the level of traditional areas, with the view to actually educate and bring traditional communities into the fold of understanding better of the concept of gender equality. So that we don't say, but we do have women as horses, we do have women as headmen, but the fact of the matter is we don't change our actions, we don't change our traditions, and we actually use culture and tradition as an excuse and to abuse women and children.
I am glad that you've covered almost everything, especially with regard to the strong, you've built a strong social impact, especially with organizations and entities that have something to do with this thing of that is the disempowerment of women, oppression of women, and so on, and also to try and pave forward, make the legislation that will definitely try and that will be used to punish those who will be going the other on the wrong side of the law and so on. That is a what you call a good impact and on this thing of a women's charter in this issue.
Let me just say that we actually use the idea of social compacting, having our agreements, not in a punitive way. We don't want to just punish people. We want to conscientize them and to make sure that, because people are going to jail for gender-based violence, but we are still not getting them to understand that we are speaking prevention. We are not speaking punitive or remedial action. What we are trying to do is to raise the consciousness of our people so that this doesn't happen. And that is why we have agreed that there should be more compacting between the parliament, government, and the people, as well as those that are responsible in communities for implementing these programs and this policies and this legislation. So that is why I'm saying it is, for us, it's very important that we should be doing in partnership, not excluding, not be differentiate between different people, but to include everyone in an understanding that what we want to achieve is a gender equal society, a society where gender mainstreaming is not an issue, where you find, if you find a man as a president, you'll find a woman as a deputy president in any social setup, not necessarily because people are looking at government, but they are not looking at how do we change our community, because we need to bring from the bottom up changes. And I think legislation, policies, and other kind of instruments is the ones that will assist us to make sure that we bring about a very gender equal society.
That was the Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Ms. Sylvia Lucas, talking to us about the work that Parliament has done since the beginning of the 6th Parliament. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
And then right now, we are going back to, we are just going to get a clip on last year's SONA. On the last year's SONA, we are going to get, is the next one that is going to get into our screen soon.
Thank you. No, do no. Why are you showing me standing up? You always say you must wait. Now you don't tell me to wait.
African nation together.
Thank you.
The black rod is the symbol of the authority of the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. It derives its name from the ebony wood from which the rod is traditionally made. It is carried by the usher of the black rod in the ceremonial processions, such as during a sitting of the House. It is placed upright next to the presiding officer's chair as an indication that the house is formally in session. Similar to the mace, it resembles a nopkiri, an African symbol of defense, authority, and leadership. The black rod stands at a length of 1.1 meter and weighs 8 kilograms. The protea at the head of the black rod is South Africa's national flower. It has 2 rows of 9 handmade 18-karat gold leaves, each representing one of the 9 provinces. The inner core of the protea is made of pure silver and is finished in oxidized silver. The supporting disc below the protea is made of ebony and is connected to the shaft of the rod by 18-karat gold struts. Below the protea is a section of beadwork which represents South Africa's diverse people and its rich cultural heritage. The shaft of the black rod is made of ebony. The South African coat of arms, made of pure silver and finished in color vitreous enameling, appears twice on the shaft. The shaft is also inlaid with 18-karat gold strips. 2 sets of clasping hands engraved by hand in 18-karat gold also appear on the shaft and symbolize freedom, peace, and cooperation. The national flag appears 3 times on the shaft. The flags are pure silver and are finished in vitreous enameling. 6 gold rings on the shaft of the black rod are made of 18-karat gold. When the National Council of Provinces is in session, the black rod stands in a drum. The drum is a symbol of the African tradition of using drums to call people together for a meeting. It is also symbolic of South Africa's achievement of democracy through dialogue. The drum is made of yellow wood and the top is covered in springbok skin. Encircling the drum is a pure silver band engraved with images of rock paintings. Placed over these images are further images depicting elements of South Africa's 9 provincial coats of arms in colored vitreous enameling. From the northwest is a calabash gold. From the Free State is a cluster of Orange River lily flowers. From the Northern Cape is a thorn tree. From KwaZulu-Natal